get started here. Another week, another Zoom hangout with Butch Davis. Appreciate everybody joining in once more. Fun to do these each and every week. AJ Ricketts here with you. I'm in the Panhandle, Pensacola. Butch, I think you're still in Southwest Florida. How's things going down there the last week or so? Hope you're avoiding the bear. Hope you're firing up the grill each and every day, making yourself some good food. What's going on down there?
Yeah, I tell you, the bear's in different neighborhoods. He hadn't been in our neighborhood for a while, but enough people are posting on social media the bear walking through their backyard or down their street or something like that. So I think he's looking for groceries, But everything's going good. Weather's good and being safe.
Is this week the spring meetings, or is that coming up next week? Just FIU meetings now. What's been going on the last couple days? Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, AJ, they start tomorrow. The way they've got it set up, because normally, all 14 schools, athletic directors, coaches in football, basketball, men's and women's basketball, Title IX directors and stuff, we all usually go to Destin, Florida, which is the same location that the SEC goes, at the same hotel. But this year, obviously, we're doing everything via Zoom. And so, but we do start tomorrow. The athletic directors, I think Pete Garcia told me that they actually started this afternoon, with just the athletic directors and the conference commissioner and then all the coaches and everybody. We start tomorrow. We're going to go all day, or a big chunk of Thursday, a big chunk of Friday. They're not going to do anything over the weekend because obviously, you not have to play for the hotel rooms and that kind of stuff. And then we'll come back and do next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning. So we got about 5 days, and hopefully there's some really good positive things that come out of it. You'd like to get the conference to having spoken to other commissioners and other conferences as to, when can we assume to maybe try to get student athletes back on campus, and a lot of those kinds of things. How are we going to structure training camp? Is it going to be a 4-week training camp with multiple days practices potentially during those days, or are we going to do like a 6-week training camp? And one of the biggest questions, AJ, that a lot of the coaches and a lot of the students and the parents of the student athletes are asking, leading up to that time, are we going to bring in the student athletes and maybe for a week or 10 days and do kind of a acclimatization and testing everybody, do a test to make sure that nobody's got the virus, and if they do, then maybe you don't put them into the dorm or into the facilities. So there's a lot of planning that's got to go on to bring our athletes back. We're shooting for, and we hope that we can get student athletes back on campus at some point during June.
Yeah, spring meetings always bring some interesting storylines and nuggets. But this year, of all certainty, by the time next week, it seems like we have at least a gauge of what the plan is moving forward. So I'm sure it's going to be an interesting couple of days as you guys try to come up with a plan for how Conference USA is going to move forward. We're going to talk about the offensive and defensive lines today in terms of our ball club. We'll start with one of the 2 Twitter questions we had, addressing the off-the-field side, the academic side. FIU coached the squad, an impressive resume once more for the second straight season, the highest GPA in Conference USA. Someone's wondering, your evaluation of academics, how important is academics? What do you do to get these guys staying sharp? Now 2 straight seasons, Conference USA, best GPA. How is that structured when you facilitate that side?
Well, AJ, it's a good point. I mean, obviously, when you're recruiting, one of the things that you really look for, because obviously any kid, regardless of the sport, when they go off to college and they go and play, collegiate sports, the number one thing that I think every coach in every sport, you want your student athletes to graduate. Because the percentage of players, regardless of what the sport is, that make it to professional level, whether it's professional football, whether it's baseball, basketball, doesn't make any difference, is somewhat miniature. And then even though it's a small number that make it, they don't make it for a long period of time. And so you want kids to come in academically and get a great degree, because at some point, age 25 to 28, they're going to get back into the world and they're going to be, they need a career. They need to have a great college education. And so obviously, that's one of the things when we go out and we're looking at players, we're looking for players that are serious about getting a college education. Now, the flip side that goes with that from a football perspective is smart kids have a habit of not making a lot of mistakes mentally that cost you games. Whether it's audibles on offense or whether it's checks on defense, that the smarter the player is, the better the football player really truly probably is. That if they struggle in the classroom and they're not very serious about studying, then that kind of carries over into football. How serious are they going to study film? How much are they going to learn game plans? How much are they going to learn, all the schemes and the things? Because one of the things, AJ, that has changed dramatically in my entire coaching career, when I first got into collegiate coaching with Jimmy Johnson at Oklahoma State, I mean, the amount of time that you had with the players, they were all taking 12 to 15 hours of college classes, but you could meet with them and you could practice. If you wanted to practice for 4 hours, you could practice for 4 hours. You could meet 7 days a week. Well, obviously, in the last 20 years or so, the NCAA has shrunken that down. That the access to your student athletes is really only 17 hours each week, and that includes meetings, that includes walkthroughs, that includes practice, and that also includes lifting. Okay, so you get a 20-hour week, but 3 of those hours is considered what you're going to use on Saturday for the game. So you really need players that are pretty smart kids, that that they can do things on their own, that you can send them a list of things and say, we need you to look at this on the film, whether it's short yardage goal line and situational things in football. Watch this video, take these notes, and the smarter that they are, then the better that they're going to probably play on Saturday. So I'm very proud of our players. I'm very proud of our coaches for really recruiting players and bringing guys in to the program, and the culture that you have. Because if the coaches and everybody in the program don't have the same goals for the players, it's not going to work out good. So I'm very proud of our players to have the grades that they did.
Yeah, whatever they're interested in. I mean, we're allowing that. James Morgan pre-law. Not a lot of starting QBs doing pre-law where they go, hey, coach, when you're at Arkansas, was when you're playing ball at Arkansas, was there mandatory study hall? And did you go? Were you attending the mandatory study?
Yeah, no, they did. I mean, actually, they did have study hall, and the only way, what most of the players wanted, you wanted to get out of study hall. You didn't want to have to be there every night for a couple hours. So if you had a GPA of 2.5 or more, you got out of study hall. So
that's the motivation
most
right
of the
there.
guys worked out to try to make sure you had over a 2.5.
Yeah, get out of that right away. Once you get that first semester, you're good to get out of study hall. Hey, let's start with the O-line here, Butch. I'm gonna name a couple guys in terms of vets or guys with experience coming back. Obviously, Deontay Demery comes to mind. Shane Magoo is a leader. What a season Sione Fanu had. CUSA all freshman team, and even Rashawn Miller, he brings 6 starts with them. What's your evaluation right now? Obviously, 2 years ago, maybe the best play of any offensive line in the country, the fewest sacks allowed, and last year really rounded into form. And then you bring in Coach Rodriguez as well now. So just your evaluation of where your O-line is in terms of returners and moving forward with these guys.
Well, let's start with Joel Rodriguez, obviously coming in. I recruited him to play at the University of Miami. He played in the National Football League. He has got unbelievable passion. The players, I feel bad for the players because they didn't get the exposure of him teaching and coaching and stuff during spring practice, but he got a little bit of an opportunity to build a relationship prior to everybody being sent home for the coronavirus and stuff. But I tell you what, our players are going to love him because he loves football. He's passionate about it. He's a really good teacher. And I think anybody that's going to be a good football coach, you better be a good teacher. You better be able to inspire players to try to improve. And so I think that's going to be a good impact on that group of guys. You started off with Deontay Demery, our starting left tackle. He has all of the athletic ability to play in the National Football League for 10 years. And the biggest thing, he's a 6'6", 6'7". He's got super long arms. He's got good feet. He's got nimble, and he's quick enough that most teams put to the back of the quarterback. They put their best pass rusher. So every single Saturday, he's going to see the other team's best pass rushing individual. And so, his talent and athleticism is going to help him do that. Here's what he has to do. And one of the major things is now that he's been a starter now for 2 years is consistency. Okay. every single game and every single snap is, play like your hair's on fire, that you want to make sure that you dominate that position, because if you can shut down their best pass rusher coming off the edge, whether it's an outside linebacker, a defensive end, whether it's stunts on that side, I think that's going to be really, really good. Playing next to him last year was Sione Finau, the freshman who you just referenced, the fact that he came in as a true freshman, made freshman all-conference team.
Yeah.
Now that he's got the experience of having played and started in 6 or 7 games, that should be a really good, solid combination of two guys playing next to each other. Sione is a guy that he is tough. He comes from a great high school football program, so he's tough, he's physical, and every single week, this is one of the things that kind of shocks you about incoming freshmen. He was never intimidated about going into the game. He may have been nervous slightly, okay, like all freshmen coming into the game, but his performance, he just did a terrific job playing in the game. So, and now you go to the next part, and you got Shane Magoo, who has been, he's been a part-time or a full-time starter almost his entire career being there. He's played center, he's played guard. He's super smart. And one of the things when we were with the Dallas Cowboys, we had a guy by the name of Mark Stepnoski, and he came from the University of Pittsburgh. He came to the Cowboys. He played there, and he was tough. He was physical, and he was super smart. And Shane, that's one of the things that the center has to do, is he's got to coordinate with the other 4 offensive linemen, the protections. If the quarterback calls a play and the audibles, he's got to make sure that everybody's on the same page as to, who's the 4 rushers, who's the potential 5th guy that could add in. Is it the Mike linebacker? Is it a safety, somebody in the box? So Shane does a terrific job. And I love one of the things, he has really done a terrific job from a leadership responsibility and reaching out to kids over the summertime, talking to the other guys in the offensive line, making sure they're doing what they need to do. On the right side, it's going to be kind of go into the season. Mershawn Miller has probably been one of the guys that's played the most, but we signed 2 junior college players, and we signed 2 offensive linemen in the freshman class. And so when we get to training camp, there's going to be a lot of competition for that right side, to make sure that we get not only the 5 best players on the field, but we also want to make sure that we've got at least 7, if not 8 guys that could go in and play at any time during the game. So, there's a lot of work that's got to get done, AJ, during training camp, whenever that is. And I know that Joel's been doing a terrific job doing Zoom meetings with these players over the last month and a half.
I know building up that depth and that rotation has been an emphasis on both lines. We've talked at length about, the positions changes we've seen in the program. 2 notable ones, obviously Stantley going from receiver to corner and getting drafted, and then Maurice Alexander as well, from quarterback to receiver. But position changes people don't really think as much of are those subtle changes along the offensive line. And the differences between maybe playing guard one week and then having to rotate for an injured guy and go tackle the next week. How delicate are those changes in your mind? You got an upperclassman, you feel they're almost interchangeable. How much carries over from one to the other in terms of that aspect along the offensive line?
Yeah, basically, really, AJ, what you really like is you'd like to have about 4, if not 5, guys that are pretty much interchangeable in the guard position and the offensive center position. And then ideally, you'd like to have at least 3 offensive tackles that, for an example, like Lindell Hudson last year as a redshirt freshman, he kind of became the swing guy that he would kind of go in at right tackle maybe for a possession or 2 during the course of the game. He would go over to the left side for a possession or 2, or he would let the right tackle go over to the left side. And so if you've got 3 guys that can do that, 1 to keep them fresh, 1 to make sure that you cover yourself as far as in case somebody does get an injury, but we've got to find that, and that was, the list of things, if you could see the list of things that we had, goals that we wanted to try to accomplish during spring practice, that clearly was one of them, was trying to make sure that you find 8 or 9 guys that could go into the game at any particular time.
Yeah, kind of the same theme, of course, year after year along the defensive line as we preview that side of the football. And coaching, I look at the roster, not even just not even including the guys coming into the program. There's a lot of experience along the defensive line.
That's
Kevin Oliver,
true.
Jason Mercier. How about that 1-2 punch that Alexi and Chris Whitaker brought in once both of them were eligible last year? Andrew Tarver started 11 times. You have to be a little more excited than years past about how depth is building there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, and one of the things, AJ, and this has been kind of, I was a defensive line coach prior to ever becoming a coordinator or a head coach. And one of the things that I learned with Jimmy Johnson, and this was way before the up-tempo offenses, is defensive linemen, you got to keep them fresh. And I'm going back to the early 80s and stuff when I was coaching the defensive line at the University of Miami, that, if you can develop depth, and back in those days, we tried to play as many as 8 players in almost every single game. Jerome Brown would be a starter, and Derwin Jones would be a starter, but we had Danny Cilio, and we had Russell Maryland. We had some guys behind them that, you were grooming them. Maybe they were freshmen or redshirt freshmen or sophomores, but you got them into games. And maybe the starters would play 45 to 50 plays. The backups would play 15 to 20 plays. Yeah. And, but over the last couple of years at FIU, that's what we've been doing, is we've been trying to play as many. There's been games, AJ, where we have played as many as 9 players in a game, and sometimes as many as 10. And, if we can get that, and one of the things that I feel really confident about now is that now we've started to grow these players. You mentioned Kevin Oliver and Noah Curtis. I mean, they were thrust into playing and thrust into starting as true freshmen back in 2017. Just simply, we had no depth and we didn't have the talent that we needed. But when they went into the games, I mean, they were 215, 218, 220 pounds. Well, now fast forward the clock, now they're up to in the 260s, 262s, 262s. So as defensive ends in nickel situations or passing situations, you can kick those guys down in as defensive tackles for the pass rush or for blitzes in certain situations, maybe a 2-minute drill. And Chris Whitaker and Alexi, and then David Reynolds last year, that was a true freshman. He came in and he was able to play quite a bit. You mentioned Andrew Tarver, who is a big, thick, strong, at a point of a tap. One of the things that we've got to do now is we got to find somebody that can kind of take the shoes of Tier Tart, that 3-technique type of a guy that is a great penetrator, that he's disruptive, that he can get into the backfield. He's he's one of those kind of guys that just really gives, the offensive line and the other team, they give them fits, that they're always causing problems. They're good at rushing games. They're good at blitzing. They can get the quarterback off the spot. That's one of the big things that we've got to try to find during the course of training camp.
And what I love about the defensive line, you have proven guys like Alexi, who obviously made an impact. I can remember drives. There were 3 plays, and Alexi had 3 tackles. There's proven guys like Alexi, and then we have guys like Kane Taylor, who only played in that bowl game, but he had 2 tackles, and he was a problem in that bowl game. He only played one time, but there's the excitement of, hey, maybe he's a guy who can start to make an impact along the defensive line.
That's Coach, a good point.
I mean, that's your background. D-line, you were a position coach that spot for so many years, obviously. You're not with the D-line the entire time at practices, obviously, but when you're not, a first-round draft pick is. Kennard Lang, how nice is it to have a guy, again, it's a theme of our program, first-round draft picks, number 17, NFL experience, and he's drilling these guys day after day.
That's a great point, AJ, in the sense that, obviously he was a great collegiate player, had a long, great career in the National Football League. I was fortunate enough to not only coach him in college, but I coached him with the Cleveland Browns, and he was with the Washington Redskins. And one of the things, AJ, is that when he talks in that meeting room, he earns their respect. They all know that he's already done what they would love to be able to do. And, and his experience of sharing things, not only what he did, but players that he played with, because he played with other great players in the National Football League. And so, every kid's different. Tier Tart looks totally different than David Reynolds. And so you have to structure the way in which you coach kids, what best for them, because some guys are 6'6" and some guys are 6'2", and some guys are, some guys run 4.65 and 4.7, and some run 5 flat. So you got to make sure that what you're teaching them is to be successful with the tools that they have.
When we analyze how the game has changed, obviously maybe how up-tempo offenses is something that comes to mind. But when you contrast that with your evaluation of defensive linemen, how has what you evaluate, you analyze, evolved through the last even 20 years, not 25 or 30, even the last 2 decades, of how the game is played, or maybe what's similar in terms of the foundational qualities you're looking for when recruiting a defensive lineman, or what's changed with the position?
Well, the one thing, AJ, obviously is now, in the old days when you played 8 defensive linemen, it was because you were trying to get experience and grow some younger guys. Now you better play 8 or 10 guys, because the offense is not going to go out and they're not going to run 62 plays. They may run 82 to 92 plays. And so you better have 8 to 10 guys that can go into the game and play. And you don't want your defense to sink just because the defensive line is tired and they're exhausted. And that's kind of what the up-tempo type of offenses are trying to do. They're trying to snap the ball every 13, 14, 15 seconds. They're running the ball to the sidelines, throwing the ball quick, and forcing the defensive lineman to get tired. And so obviously things that you want when you're recruiting, you're taking a look at defensive linemen, you want kids that can run. You want kids that absolutely, they play as hard as they possibly can. They're in good condition. What you can't do is you can't have that 335, 40-pound guy that is trying to tap himself out of the game after the third play, that is totally exhausted. I think that guy, for the most part, at least collegiately, because of the up-tempo offenses, has kind of, put himself in a situation he's probably going to end up playing in the offensive line, be a big, strong, physical type of a player, just simply because he can't run and pursue and chase like the younger guys can.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But it's a defensive line with a lot of experience. Excited about the recruits joining that as well. On the offensive side, Jose Mirabal is a standout in terms of his. I'll let you. I want to address him real quick before we move on to our final question. That was a big get along the offensive line. I think the Herald wrote an article about his recruitment the other day. But what excites you about the freshman class and Jose and the competition they can bring to the O-line?
You know what? I mean, obviously, the thing that I really like about them is the size. They're all in that 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". They've got long arms, and they're good athletes, okay? They're kids that have got the mobility to be able to pull, to run, and to pick up, because defenses, they've put a lot of pressure on offenses now. Now it's a lot of stunts and blitzes and stuff. So you can't, you're not going to be, if you're going to be an offense that is going to pound the ball and you're going to go 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and you can have guys that are 325 or 30 pounds that literally can't run. But if you're going to be an up-tempo type of deal and you're going to throw the ball and get the ball up down the field and go fast, your offensive line guys have got to be pretty good athletes. I'd say that there's a high percentage, a lot of kids that are playing in the offensive line today 25 years ago probably would have played on the defensive side of the ball. But today, now you need guys with the good feet, because people are blitzing linebackers. They're bringing safeties. They're bringing a lot of corners off the edges, trying to give you negative and bad plays. And so your offensive line have got to be pretty good athletes.
I'll tell you what, Alex Magoo and James Morgan have had pretty good pockets the last 2 years. Whoever steps in that position next year, hopefully that theme of some time to throw and sling it around continues. All right, our final question here for you, Coach. Going back to your NFL days, what was the best atmosphere or city to play in? So not even like off the field, best place. You guys don't have that much time when you're on the road. Best atmosphere and city. What was your favorite road trip in the NFL?
Yeah, you know what, AJ? I mean, obviously during the 6 years that I was in Dallas, getting ready to win the Super Bowls and stuff. The NFC East was unbelievable. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles and old Veterans Stadium. And being with the Cowboys, you were the most hated team. You were America's team, but every time you went someplace, they hated you. And, the snowballs and the stuff they used to throw at Jimmy Johnson on the sidelines, going and playing the Washington Redskins, and they had won Super Bowls under Joe Gibbs. And so, there was battles with those. The New Orleans Saints, I will tell you that back in the 90s, when they really started to become a great program and a good franchise playing in that Superdome. I mean, it was unbelievably loud. I mean, you almost couldn't hear. And we played there, I think, in 1989 in our first year when we went 1-15. And we stunk. We were bad, and they were good. And, I mean, it was intimidating. I mean, but one of the things, AJ, when you go on the road and you go to places like that, you learn an awful lot about how to deal with distractions and crowd noises and stuff. I mean, legendary. I always think about going to Lambeau Field, and as a kid growing up and watching the Green Bay Packers with Vince Lombardi, and just standing on the sidelines and going, "Oh my God, I'm actually coaching a team." With Vince Lombardi, and their fans were spectacular. They were the most passionate fans that you would go and play, and whether you won the game or you lost the game, when you left, they were outside and they were trying to give you hot dogs and give you something to eat or give you a beer if you take a beer, whatever. I mean, they're fans. They love the Packers. And, so it was, every one of those cities kind of had an unbelievable culture. Being in Dallas, we went, I think, in maybe 1990, I think, or maybe 91, we played the Cleveland Browns and in the old Cleveland Browns stadium. And, oh my God! I mean, that was kind of a legendary thing. It was an old baseball stadium, and the dugouts were there, and people were on top of you, and the dog pound in the old Cleveland Browns stadium. I mean, they had like 80-something thousand fans there. So, I mean, it was interesting with a lot of different places. Everybody today, they listen to the Kansas City Chiefs. Forever, as far as I can ever remember, back to the 80s. Kansas City, their fans, unbelievable. I mean, they were there early. They were loud. The noise inside the stadium. I mean, it might have been, with the exception of domes, it might have been the loudest stadium I think that I've ever coached in.
Really? Yeah, once they get the chant going there, that place gets crazy. And it's funny, the different dynamics you mentioned. I'm sure when you're in Philly, you're looking around, it's crazy, but there's an element of hostility in the air when it's Dallas and Philadelphia, whereas you're able to kind of soak in the tradition more maybe in Lambeau. Did you ever grab one of those hot dogs or beers from the fans when you were walking?
Absolutely. Dave Wanstead and Tony Wise and I kind of we'd been together at Oklahoma State, Miami, and Dallas, and we kind of had a tradition that when the buses, there used to be an early bus that would go, and a lot of times it had the trainers and the doctors, and a few of the players would go that liked to get there early, and we'd always go early, and maybe we would take a walk around the field or something like that, but we always would take a walk up into the stadium, and we would try to buy a hot dog at almost every stadium for a decade, and try to figure out, okay, who has the best hot dog? And without hands down, we played the Green Bay Packers one time in Milwaukee. And Milwaukee, because of baseball teams, it was the Milwaukee Braves before they went to Atlanta and stuff like that. Hands down, no doubt about it. They had the best hot dogs in all of the NFL.
Well, I'm motivated to start a new tradition now. If we're playing in the fall and going on the road, I got to go to the concession stand. I think the only time I've done that was at Western Kentucky. We went to the concourse and we got a cheeseburger at Sonic and on the concourse.
And so this will tell you about how we didn't like San Francisco. Okay. So when you go to play San Francisco, we went out there and it was for the NFC Championship. So Dave, we're going to go. We're going to do a normal walk, look for a hot dog. Sushi. Come on, man! You can't sell sushi at a football stadium. They got.
I bet it was good. Did you try it?
They got white wine and sushi, so we had to win the game to go to the Super Bowl because they didn't have good hot dogs.
That's fine. I bet you
concession stand sushi. Right?
Yeah,
it's California.
That comes with the territory. That's hilarious. Coach, appreciate the time. Thanks as always everyone for joining us here once more. Friday will be with Coach Ballard. He will join us this Friday on Zoom.
Great guy, doing a terrific job.
Yeah, heck of a year. Just named there was the top 40 under 40 list from ESPN, I think, today. And he was on that and was not surprised to see him. So we'll have a Coach Ballard here on Friday. Butch, we'll talk to you soon. Hey, what's on the you cooking on the grill tonight? What's for dinner this evening?
We're actually going to do, for people that live in Miami, okay, they all understand this. One of the favorite places to go is called a chicken kitchen. Okay, all right. Yeah, so we're doing a chicken kitchen, but we're doing it over here. I'm grilling the chicken and chopping up the tomatoes and the black beans.
Ooh,
and,
okay.
Yeah, I've eaten that so many times over the last 25 or 30 years. I think I've got the sauce down to exactly the way that they make it. So
we're Chef Davis tonight.
We're doing Chicken Kitchen on the road.
Love it. Love it. Very good. All right, Coach, be well. We'll talk to you soon. Tell the family my hellos, and we'll talk soon. All right, thanks, everybody. Pause up.
Take care.
We'll do it again soon. See you.